So you talk about three instances or three opportunities to create strategic change. What are those times when organizations can really capitalize on the need or opportunity for change?
We're living in times that somebody recently described to me as the blurring speed of change. That even 5 years ago, it didn't seem so fast. And we could afford to do a 5-year plan. Do you remember these? We would do 5-year plans, and now it's almost as if by the time you start in on the beginning of a plan, things have changed so quickly, and it's unprecedented. So the first way that you should be prepared or can be prepared for change is when, believe it or not, when you're trying to maintain status quo. Because just keeping up with competitive changes that are happening sometimes with the people that we see very clearly, and sometimes they're not people that we're tracking. Mm-hmm. So Groupon, sort of came out of, it seemed like nowhere all of a sudden. Then of course they're copycats, but a lot of times now in our current business environment, people are sneaking in on us. So the first time is with the competitive necessity, and as I said, that can even be to maintain status quo.
So this is almost the classic business case in the traditional sense of someone else has now encroached on our space, either directly, like Groupon's competitors once they came out, or indirectly, where they're competing for time, energy, or money that our customers typically find scarce.
That's right, and think of young people's budgets 10 years ago. I mean, if they had $100 to spend in a given year, it was not a large percentage of it that went to cell phones. And now, so many young people have a larger percentage of their discretionary income, say, going to a cell phone. And so that cuts out on some of the leisure activity, some of the other things that they would be spending their dollar on. And that happens no matter, it's nothing, there was nothing wrong with these leisure activities. It's just if there's a finite pie and something like a cell phone comes on as something that they prefer, the other aspects of their dollar spend are going to suffer. So the second time is obviously when you have to really add some value. You know that you have become a commodity, for instance. The way that you tell that, by the way, is that your margins are slipping. A lot of times in restaurants, it's really easy to see that your check average is going down or people are coming less often. And restaurants are a great industry to track because you can see things quickly. If the economy changes, there's an immediate switch in what I call the water bed. There's a finite amount of dollars that people are going to spend on the calories they consume. So if their dollar spend is going down in food, they'll have to use grocery stores more than restaurants, for instance. So that means that the restaurants in that case would have to do something different, maybe have a value menu to bring those consumers back and have more guests. So the third is, and you don't have to just be Steve Jobs to do this in Apple, but when you want to be a market leader. And that can come from two ways. To intentionally become a market leader, there's a lot of insight and a lot of innovation that has to go into the thinking. And so this process is a wonderful and strong way to take insights and observations that we see, especially in the areas we talked about, what's happening differently in the customer experience, what's happening differently in products and services that are being bought on the fringes. What music are they downloading? What fashion decisions are they making? What's the full range of your consumer? What's shifting? And when you really want to leapfrog and be a market leader, this process works for that as well.
So in the past, we've traditionally thought about being the market leader as being the largest in a particular industry or category. But what I'm hearing you say is this is a little different, maybe about being the best or just being the leader in a particular trend in an industry.
So this is the great part about the opportunity in business today. We can create market leadership just by being really observant and sensitive to a changing consumer need. For instance, there are lots of marriages between two industries happening nowadays. Think about banking. I remember walking into a bank, a physical bank, with my younger son a couple months ago, and I was physically depositing a check. Now, he banks at a different bank. So he and I were going to take the walk down to his bank next and deposit his check. Well, as I was standing at the teller, my son was scanning his check, clicking it, and depositing the check. So when I said, well, it's time to go to the bank, he said, I've already deposited my check. So that one element that his bank was able to provide of being able to deposit something remotely made my son pick that bank, and ultimately that bank is a market leader in terms of the convenience aspect. So one element, it's this combination of these business genomes, convenience is something that can really start to erode my bank and make me switch to my son's bank.